Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. So worldwide motion to dump globalization, to fight hot money, to limit the speculators, to keep the jackals and hyenas at bay with capital controls and exchange controls. Plus, everybody in the world is now doing a dirty float. If you're not doing a dirty float, you're simply a prize fool. Dirty float means that instead of letting market forces, in other words, Soros and the Koch brothers, decide what your currency is worth, you use your political process, be it democratic or whatever it is, to express the common interest or the overriding national interest of your country. So you do central bank operations, you dump currency, buy currency, mainly in this case you dump your own currency and buy dollars, unfortunately, in order to prevent the currency from going so high that your entire export sector is completely destroyed. Now, obviously, it's not the definitive answer, but it's presumably a way station, we hope, on the way to fixed parities, as we had under Bretton Woods. One of the greatest fruits, the last and best fruit of the Roosevelt New Deal, the New Deal for the world, the Bretton Woods system, and it just worked better than anything we've seen in human history before or since. Was not perfect, could be improved on, and we will improve on it. Now, at this Seoul, South Korea conference, we've got Tiny Tim Geithner, wants to attack China, but now I think realizes that he's too weak for a direct frontal assault on China. And here's the way he does it. This is supposedly clever from the point of view of Tiny Tim. China now has a foreign exchange surplus. In other words, their balance of payments is positive by 5% of their entire gross domestic product. Geithner doesn't go in there saying, down with China, smash China, drive up the renminbi, force them to upvalue their currency. He says, why don't we just make a general rule that everybody in the world, to be fair, has to reduce their foreign exchange surplus to 4% of their gross domestic product by 2015. Now, it doesn't sound like a lot, but if you go from 5% to 4%, in other words, it's essentially 20% of your foreign trade that you'd be losing. And as Prime Minister Wen of China has said, if we did that, we'd have thousands of export firms closed down, which are currently operating on very narrow margins. We'd have a lot of people being thrown out of work. We'd have a lot of peasants who have found jobs in factories who would have to go back to their villages. And then we'd have political turbulence. We'd have political instability. And that wouldn't be good for anybody, except the Anglo-Americans say, yeah, that's exactly what we want. We're still hoping for a color revolution in China. There is still this problem of authoritarianism and the way out of authoritarianism in China. That's a real problem. The only thing is, the answer is not provided by the Dalai Lama or Rabia Kadir and her World Uyghur Conference, or this guy, the Chinese dissident who just won the Nobel Peace Prize. These are essentially the harbingers of color revolutions or worse, or violent upheavals, which the Anglo-Americans would love, but they're not going to get it. Anyway, Geithner's gambit, instead of 5% surplus in terms of balance of payments compared to the GDP, it's only got to be 4%, but obviously it's targeted on China. The Japanese say no. Finance Minister Noda of Japan says no, this U.S. plan is not realistic. Very strong words for that part of the world. Russian Finance Minister Pankin says we will not allow any specific numbers. We don't want these numerical targets. The German Finance Minister Bruderle, or the representative, says no, we don't want this idea of planning. He calls that planned economy. Strange stuff. In Australia, the Australian dollar now very high as a result of hot money dollar carry trade flows going into Australia. Well, Australia, get with the program. If Brazil, Thailand, and South Korea can do it, you can too. Time for exchange controls, capital controls. I guess these come down to the three things that we could do right now. Capital controls, exchange controls around the world, number one. Try to start shutting down these speculators. The second thing is the Tobin tax, the Wall Street sales tax, securities transfer tax, now coming out of France, coming out of Germany and other European countries, and also now coming out of South Korea. And then the foreclosures, and we talked extensively about foreclosures. Obviously, the sabotage of the Obama White House coming to the fore. Right up to now, we got a whole bunch of Democratic candidates who are saying that they're in favor of a freeze on foreclosures. Now, again, what they mean by this is something which is temporary, which is voluntary, with no penalties. We're talking about a freeze on foreclosures, which is compulsory by federal law with criminal penalties. And if you throw an American family out on the street from their primary residence for just about any reason, you should be looking at the inside of the pen. So the people, the Dems who have essentially given lip service to this very weak demand, Harry Reid, Nancy Pelosi, Elijah Cummings, Maxine Waters, Ted Lieu, Barbara Lee, Van Hollen, Congressman here, Governor O'Malley of Maryland, Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz, all in favor of some kind of a freeze on foreclosures. Even the loyal opposition to the International Monetary Fund, the IMF's own in-house opposition, Joe Stiglitz, says it's time for a freeze on foreclosures. Now, that means that the Democrats would be well advised to campaign on this. The problem is, of course, the Obama White House is sabotaging them at every turn. And even the reactionaries, you can hear reactionary commentators saying how good and responsible Obama is being. It's a mark of maturity and statesmanship that Obama is saying, no, we're not going to freeze foreclosures. We're not going to have any even jawboning from the White House that they should freeze foreclosures, which I think shows ultimately that Obama is incorrigible. In other words, he's a hopeless, incorrigible puppet of Wall Street, because if there's ever a moment when you need something that would give you some populist traction right now, looking at huge losses in these elections, and I've got Politico, Tuesday, October 19th, 99 seats in play. We'll tell you who in the second hour if we have time. 99 seats in play. And most of these are Democratic. There's about 99 Democratic House seats that are in danger of being lost, which would be huge. Not likely to go quite that far, but if it gets over 70, it's an all-time record, I believe. At that point, if Obama's ever going to break loose of Wall Street, even verbally, even to some limited extent, surely it would be now. And he can't do it. And I think this is in many ways a definitive verdict that Obama is simply a hopeless, incorrigible Wall Street puppet. He'll never change. He can't change. And this means that he's got to be dumped. He's got to be dumped through the process of the primary elections in 2011. Lots and lots of speculation we've heard about who's going to run against him. Even that Hillary, according to this Ulsterman, from the blog reports that we talked about last week, Ulsterman says Hillary will either be the presidential or vice presidential candidate for the Democratic Party. I don't think Hillary is the answer. She's not the answer. But as we saw in 1968, once you get one opposition candidate coming into the lists, then others may follow. And there certainly must be now a tremendous rage and resentment inside the Congressional Democratic Party that they come out and say we should freeze foreclosures, and the Obama White House is saying, no, we're going to protect lenders, we're going to protect zombie banks, we're going to throw the American people out on the street. Now, in that regard, a tale of two cities. People have been watching the French protests, and I think with some admiration. The French fight. They have economic rights, they know it, and they want the bankers to pay. The people shouldn't pay, the bankers should pay. Sarkozy domestically wants the bankers not to pay. He's serving the bankers. We'll be back in a minute on World Crisis Radio.